property managers and even owners should not underestimate the power of guest engagement. Hospitality is a tough industry. No matter what you do, they won't be happy.
What do you think were the key things you did right that allowed you to grow that community? What advice would you give to someone that would be trying to replicate that success?
If we look at strategy, it's not only the blog post, but everything around that. You'd want to weave in social media and newsletters and email content to support that blog post.
What does it take for a blog post to be successful? How do you think about building a blog strategy that is actually going to be helping you rank?
People in property management and ownership is to not look at a guest as if they're a one-off. These people, not only will they possibly come back and stay again, but it's pre-marketing. They're going to go out and share photos, share their experiences.
It doesn't have to be expensive. It's the thoughtfulness that you put into it, more so than how much it costs. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. And we bring here hospitality professionals, operators, hosts to share best practices and insights from things they've learned along the way so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. So today I'm excited to have Kay Walten, the founder and CEO of Smart Pineapple, here with us. Thank you, Kay, for being with us today. How are you doing?
I'm great, Sebastian. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Kay. So you have a pretty interesting background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into hospitality in the first place, and just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. Thanks. My journey actually began, I've always been into event marketing or tourism through theme parks and all. But in, 1992, I was an underwater cave diver, and I had the opportunity to move to the Cancun Tulum corridor, which is now known as the Riviera Maya. And so I moved there to explore underwater caves back in 92. And that was, for anybody listening, if you know anything about Tulum, now you see it with these really, Gucci hotels on the beach and five-star restaurants and all. But when I went to, there were no street lights, and it was a narrow 1.5 lane road through the Pueblo. And you used to be able to drive your vehicle right down to the beach and go swimming. So I moved there to explore underwater caves, but nobody pays you to do that. You do that because it's a passion to be an explorer. So in 1996, someone said, hey, there is a new thing called the internet, and you should start doing rentals to your divers, because I was working for a dive shop. So I said, all right. And my company, one of the first online companies for Mexico, was formed, called Loco Gringo. And we were one of the first online reservation services and forums. So we're kind of like an Airbnb TripAdvisor before our day, or before their day. And so we were out there doing that, promoting what is now the Riviera Maya. And that was before there was a destination marketing organization. And really our goal when we started that company was to promote the region that we absolutely loved. I've lived in the Riviera Maya for 23 years and back in the US now, but my heart is there. And that was to bring the magic that I found living there, to bring it to other people and to entice them to come and appreciate the Riviera Maya, the culture, the small businesses and everything, and to try to discover what I just had such a passion and found so much magic in. And that was really my big foray into hospitality and tourism, everything from doing reservations online to property management. The water goes out in Mexico. I was there delivering towels. So really had a very all-encompassing experience in hospitality and tourism there in the Riviera Maya. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's lots of nuances along there, but in a broad stroke, that was kind of my big steps into hospitality and tourism.
That's interesting. So you ended up selling this eventually, didn't you?
I did. I had the company for about 23 years. And
23 years. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I loved it. Been through lots of hurricanes, lots of things that can go on living in any region for a given period of time. And so I sold the company in 2019, returned back to the United States, where I went back and advanced my education for a master's degree in travel and tourism, where now I serve as an adjunct professor for Temple University. And I thought I would sit back and retire, but I believe in travel and tourism. And I know it's not a perfect industry, but I really believe in it, and started recently an AI organization to help empower the medium and smaller businesses in hospitality and tourism. Because at the end of the day, coming from the world of tourism, it's those smaller businesses that really make any destination captivating, whether it's, Belize or Buffalo. It's one of those things is that, it's those smaller businesses that really hit home to people. And having been in the small business sector myself for so long, is I wanted to be able to bring the power of AI and everything to these people and to help make their jobs easier. Because we all know, being in hospitality, you're wearing lots of different hats, from reservations to concierge to, making sure everything's running in that. And so I wanted to help others move along in their journey to become prosperous. Also, though, with a mindfulness, if you will, about giving to building the local economy, doing local to really support where they live and where they do business. So it's not just, make as much money as you can, is how to do it consciously to support sustainable tourism and the local economic development, from jobs to, sustainability and sustainable tourism, so that people are welcome to come and experience any destination that there is. So that's kind of my Kumbai messaging and, passion there, and moving ahead in my career.
No, and we'll talk about Smart Pineapple for sure, and everything you're building there with the AI component to it. But let's go back to, so I just want to understand. So this company that you run for 20 years, more than 20 years.
Yeah.
You grew this to 100,000 members. So there was a lot of sort of, members.
Yeah.
So let's understand a little bit better. Yeah, how did that happen? Like, how do you grow to so many members? And let's really, break down the business model of this company. You said it's like an Airbnb. So were you literally that? Were you a marketplace?
We were a marketplace. However, we literally, now we got to go back into the 90s, and so we had a site for Belize. So we were doing business in Belize, which was very rustic, and they didn't have internet in a lot of places. The Caribbean coast of Mexico and Cozumel. And so what we did is we gave away web pages. We said, there's this thing called the internet, and we want to we want to give you a web page. And we bought one of the very first digital cameras that Kodak produced, shot pictures. And in any destination, people say, oh yeah, it's wonderful or something. Well, then you go and you experience it. Well, okay, maybe we don't have electricity, or maybe it's not as idyllic as a owner might say. And so we would go through and really look at a property and write up an honest property description, itemize out the amenities, just very much like you would do on an Airbnb listing right now. But we're writing it in our persona with rates and all, and the attractive features for whatever that audience would be for that property. We started out with 6 properties. And we finished up probably over the years, when everything from places that didn't have electricity that were palapas on the beach to big all-inclusive resorts, really ran the gamut. But what we did, and this was before TripAdvisor even, is that we had a forum that we asked people to participate in. And this was for travelers, for guests. And we said, hey, we have this forum. And literally, I remember properties going, oh my God, what if people complain? And I went, yeah, what if they complain? Address those problems, or tell us and we'll address them. So we built this community up to 100,000 members on our forum, so much so that we had people, we had like groups, we had like the New England group, we had a group in Ontario that called themselves the Loco Gringos. They were like groupies, but they organized themselves to have parties. And you know what? There's not a business plan in the world that could have tried to predict this type of community, because even today, and it's now what, 1996, 2024, these people are, a lot of these people are still in touch with each other. We've been through vacations and marriages and divorces and deaths and all, and we still have a cohesiveness in a lot of those members. And it was people sharing information about a location that they loved, and a location that they returned to time and time again. And that was what I think one of the misnomers that people think is that, oh, they're only going to come once. A guest is only going to come once and they're off to another destination. And I have seen it firsthand, is that people will return. If you give them a quality experience, they're going to not only return, but then you have what everybody refers to as the word of mouth marketing. They're going to tell all their friends, and we had a fabulous time. And it always perpetuated. I mean, to this day, I have clients who still go down there, or they'll call me, even though I'm not with the company anymore. And they'll say, "Hey, I was looking at this place. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Yes," or "No," or, putting other.
So there's the community component. I'm just really trying to break this apart so that I can understand this, and then we can move on to the rest, right? So you said we were giving away websites for free. Were you giving those away to the destination or to each individual property owner? You were creating a website for each
property owner. To the property owner.
So it was one independent website per property?
Well, they would have a page underneath our umbrella. So,
you had
underneath
the umbrella,
our brand,
that's like
then we went
OTA,
out
and so you created the listing for them.
Yep.
Were people able to book directly from your platform, or would they connect the guest and the host, and then they will take care of payments and bookings?
We handled all of the inquiries. So at that time, when we think back, which you would say it's very archaic, but there is method to my madness, is that what corresponded via email back and forth between the client and our office. We would say, okay, they would say, this is the type of vacation we want to have, and we like this property, and we would help them find the most ideal property based on their goals. And sometimes it's the property that they choose, but then we say, well, wait a minute, it doesn't have X, Y, and Z. Maybe you want to look at some other places as well. So we're an advocate for the tourists, and we were like that middleman. We wanted to represent the properties honestly and support the owners or the managers, and we wanted to support the guests to make sure that they had a great experience, because we wanted them to come back. We did not, and up until when I sold the company in 2019, I am not necessarily the biggest fan of a book it now type platform. I understand it, I appreciate it. However, that interaction between a representative and that potential guest, that can make or break the situation. And it can also work in terms of the owners, where they have people who come in and do damages, where there were warning signs we could tell, are they coming in for this festival or that festival? So we were kind of this nice middleman that we really wanted to serve both parties and do it well and do it fairly, so that they were happy. So we have this business side of things where we're saying, okay, we've got the reservation side of things, and then we have the whole community of tourism, of tourists who are bonding and exchanging information and asking questions. And we were doing weekly newsletters, what is now considered blogging. We were doing that long before it was a term. So we were incorporating all of that to get engagement from the guests, but to do it in a manner that was fair to not only the guests, but also to the owners or managers of the property. Did that clarify things?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, I'd love to ask you, in terms of, let's say, property management companies that might be listening to this, and they might
Yep.
be thinking, okay, what can I learn from that experience? You grew basically a community of guests, and
Yep.
you build that up to 100,000 of them. So if you're like talking to property managers out there and giving them marketing advice on how they could build a newsletter list, or something where they can now start to have that direct booking component to their strategy, to not depend on the OTA so much, like, what
Yep.
do you think were the key things you did right that allowed you to grow that community so much? Like, what advice would you give to someone that would be trying to replicate that success?
I think that that property managers and even owners, they should not underestimate the power of guest engagement. And it can be tough. Hospitality is a tough industry because you're constantly overcoming obstacles, and you have people you have guests that will, no matter what you do, you could hang the moon and they won't be happy. But that engagement with them, and to honestly have that genuine concern that you want them to have the best experience possible. So that engagement is really important. And I think that in some destinations, you know, when I was down in Mexico, there was no registering. They say, oh, the keys are in the mat, or the condo's open, or whatever. The hotels, your room is there. Just let yourself in whenever you get in. But to get that registration card, not only does it give you information in the worst case scenario that something happens that get to that guest, and you have contact information and emergency information, but that gives you the opportunity to start building your list, even if they are from an OTA, is that you get this contact information, and then you can start building that relationship with that guest, from getting their reviews to continually marketing with them, and to build your digital footprint so that instead of going through a big OTA, next time they're going to book directly with you. And that, I think that's one of the biggest things, that one of the advantages once the big OTAs came on that my organization had, was that we had personal relationships with these owners. I mean, some of them literally I've seen owners who've come up to me while I'm hanging out topless on the beach way back in the day. And they're like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, yeah. And we pick up their properties and stuff. Is that we had those types of relationships with owners where we could say, you know what, this guest really needs whatever it would be. And we could work it out because we knew the owners personally, and they knew that we had their best judgments in mind. So I really think that for people in property management and ownership, is to not look at a guest as if they're a one-off and you'll never see them again. Is that these people will give you that, they will, not only will they possibly come back and stay again, but that's free marketing, if you will, that they're going to go out and share photos, share their experiences, not only about the property, but everything else that you refer them to. Is that if you're making recommendations and making suggestions for them to have a great trip, that it's with reputable people, so that when they go home, they're saying great things about the property and about the destination. Because
Well,
either
then,
one could turn people off later on as they're going out and putting it on Facebook to say, oh, we had a great stay, but the destination sucked, or the destination was fabulous, but the property sucked. There is a nice middle ground that doesn't take a lot of work to be able to have the best of both worlds there.
got it. Okay, that makes sense. And in terms of fast forward to today, I mean, tell us a little bit more about Smart Pineapple. How does the concept come about? When in your timeline do you start thinking about it, and decide that, hey, you're gonna jump into this new venture? Like, just walk us through the concept and how it came about.
Well, it went from, originally I moved to Mexico to explore underwater caves. And then I started exploring the internet back when it first started. And so my personal journey was that I continued on with my discovery of technology, and looked at AI and said, okay, how can what does AI do in and of itself? And how can it be put to work for us as small business owners? How can we leverage it? Because too many times I've seen the big companies, they have IT people or lots of marketing team and things, and what is it for the smaller businesses that are really really want to get ahead, but they're not really sure how to go. So what I did is thought about when I had my old company and stuff, is think about what were the tools that I needed as a small business owner, whether it was responding to reviews, responding to my people on my forum, writing descriptions for my website or for other websites on the property, crafting emails, understanding my customer and what is my value proposition to my customers. Because I mean, how many times have you talked to a property owner and you say, who's your ideal customer? And they go, everybody, we want everybody. No. You don't want everybody. You really will fit a niche. And when you hone into who that direct customer is and have a better understanding on what they want, what they need, you will develop that niche and carve out your own place in that little sector. So a lot of the tools that I developed, which really kind of just started off as a hobby, kind of going, ooh, what can I do? Was to be able to take things that I learned how to do throughout my entire career and life, is how can we leverage AI to develop a platform and tools that can assist property managers and property owners and smaller hoteliers to be able to write better newsletters, understand their customer, understand their strengths, how to respond. And the unique position that I've had, because I've lived most of my life in Mexico, is that my first employees didn't speak English. I sent them to English school. And so how many times now with AI, you can delegate tasks and have assistants whose main language may not be English, and they can respond in proper grammar in a different language. And they may not be well versed in customer service, but they can use the power of AI to craft a message to respond to these people in a timely fashion, because we all know responding to reviews is really high on the priority list and very critical, because if an owner doesn't respond or someone doesn't respond to a less than 5-star review, then you got to wonder what's the issues here. Do they not care about their guests? And so we want through the power of AI is to be able to have proper smaller businesses up their game in customer service, not only in their experience at the property level, but also in the destination level, to expose them to all the wonderful things within their locale. So you can talk about festivals or establish strategic partnerships with other services within the destination to support the local economic development.
Got it. No, and there's a lot there, but I guess the way I understood it, and I know there's more to it, but just maybe to put it in simple terms, it's basically AI enabled content creation. It sounds to me like you can apply that content creation to all sorts of things, from replying to your guests to writing better websites and descriptions to writing newsletters. But at the core of it all, it seems to be that you have this AI tool to help you write all of that. Is that more or less
that is more or less it is more or less what it is. But to take it just the next step further, is that it is not just a chat GPT. Because if I'm sure you've used chat GPT and you put in a question or you say, write this, and it's garbage. You don't know how to ask the questions. So we've engineered a lot of the questions to incorporate things in responses like sustainable tourism or virtue signaling in a property description, to take into considerations factors that are applicable to people in the hospitality industry that you wouldn't get on a GPT or a very mass product. We've really honed it down for this very small sector to say, these are the tools you need, and it will take, you can write a blog post in 3 minutes that's SEO friendly and accurate about whatever topic you want for your destination or your property. And it will even put in calls to action to say, okay, here's all the amenities for my property. It will weave that into a description, whether it's a blog post or a social media post. it will weave all of that together. So you don't have to be a big wizard in prompt engineering or anything like that. All of the secret sauce is behind the curtain. All you have to do is if you can fill out a few blanks, that's all you need, is to fill out a few blanks online, regardless of what your primary language is, regardless of your tech savviness, and regardless, you don't have to be a marketing guru either, because we want to educate people. And we've started an online community of owners and managers. We want to educate people on simple things. Why is a meta description important? Why is, what is the value of creating an ebook for your guests or a blog post? So we want to just not only just say, oh, well, you can create this, but what's the value to the user and their business if they use these tools, and where it will take them further on down the road.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about best practices when it comes to, let's say, blog posts, right? Building a blog post. So property managers might be looking at blog posts as a way to rank higher on the search results of Google, right? Maybe they want to drive more direct bookings. Maybe they want to attract more owners that are looking for management services. So from what you've learned and from the way in which you built your tool to facilitate this blog creation process for others, what does it take for a blog post to be successful? And more so that the blog post itself, how do you think about building a blog strategy that is actually going to be helping you rank?
Exactly. So if we look at strategy, it's not only the blog post, but everything around that. So you'd want to weave in social media and newsletters and email content to support that blog post. For blog posts, I think it really is going to depend on who your target audience is, and whether it's short and sweet with bullet points, because nowadays, as we all know, is that attention spans are really short. So we want to make sure blog posts are readable, and that's just like, headlines and bullet points, that it visually fits a certain structure. So you want to have those types of elements, but also then on SEO factors, you want to have keywords, but you don't want to overdo it, because if you don't know what you're doing, you may, jam pack. I'll just pick Cancun. You don't want Cancun in every sentence, because they know then it's keyword stuffing, and you'll get penalized more than anything. So it's to have that balance of keywords, and also to be real. And what those words mean in successful blogging is to use that to establish authority and trust. And why were we successful in our community and everything we did when we had our business in Mexico? Because we established authority and trust. And authority doesn't mean you have to be a pressed shirt and just keep really straight. Is that you want to be honest and accurate, and establish trust. And that, right, and it is, especially in this day and age, that authority and trust is an intangible value. So people are going to say, hey, I want to go to Key West, and someone will say, oh, well, you know what, talk to these people because they know what they're doing, because they're confident. So that authority and trust can be built in blog posts. It's not just putting up, 50 words or 200 words. Is what does in best practices, and especially in the work, because content is everything, what value can you bring to the reader? And time again, and I write a lot almost daily, is that we don't want to talk so much it can't be all about us. It can't be about being a property manager. It can't be, oh, this property is great and this property has this. What do these features and benefits mean to that reader, and mean to the quality of experience to that guest? And I think more so, that's more important than, is your blog post 800 words or 1,200 words, is, are you conveying value to the reader, and what are you contributing to them? We want, if we turn everything around and say, I'm saying being me-centric or my property, or is, what are we offering them? Let's be hospitable, and what can we offer them in everything that we produce? and and give that information away with value, because in the long run, that's going to lend more credibility than, just being, oh, well, we just want your money and it's a discount, or we've got these availabilities. Is really, you're nurturing that customer for the long term and establishing yourself as an authority, whether it's and it doesn't have to be in that marketplace, but that you understand the market and that you understand the needs of your guests as well. And I think more so now than ever before, people want to feel like they're understood and that they're heard. And you want to be able to convey that in any of your blog posts, is that you understand some of the needs and concerns of the guests that you are your target audience.
Yeah,
Does
no,
that
I
make
love it.
sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense, and I was thinking too. It resonates with. I had on the show as a guest Matt Landau, and
Mhm.
he's also big on conveying emotion when you're writing copy
Yep.
in your listings and whatnot. Like basically, he's big on having that be the differentiating aspect of what you write, right? And I think
Yep.
that goes back to what you were saying about not writing things for you, but writing it for them. Like what does value mean for them rather than what does value mean to you? So I think that makes sense. Now you say you write almost daily. What is it that you write? Is it blog posts? Is it newsletter stuff? Is it just personal thoughts of yours?
No, so I mean, I write blog posts, not a daily, probably 3 times a week. I write blog posts and write them by hand and research and do citations more, because having working with the university and all that, I'm kind of just in that mode to say, here are the resources, because there's a lot of great information out there. So besides blog posts, is looking at social media, writing ebooks. I'm just finishing up a draft on a book on virtue signaling. Basically, if you're saying that I'm going to pick one just off the top of my head, like environmentally friendly, is that the words you use in your property descriptions have this signal the virtues you have as a person, or the values that you believe in. And that's very important. If we go, I'll pick an easy one here. If you look at, when we talk about virtue signaling, if you say, oh, you know what, you may not want to be in some remote part of, and I'll pick on Texas here or Florida, and say, oh, we love the LBGTQ and there's lots of, we welcome everybody and stuff, when that doesn't resonate with the community, you're doing a disservice. You personally might be that, but you're doing a disservice not only to that guest who may be in that community, but you're also doing a disservice to your locals that may not have the same mindset as you have. And that could go, whether it's not only on the LGBTQ plus community, but also you could look at religions and things where your words, you have to think about not only their words, what they mean to you and that guest, but also in your local community, because the experience that they have could be totally different. Another interesting thing that I'm looking at, we welcome tourists. If you're in Barcelona right now and you say, oh, and we love tourists, we want to welcome you and everything, but they're protesting out, your local community is protesting outside of your hotel or your property, that is incongruent. It's two different experiences, and it's not going to bode well. So there's that honesty there, and those virtues are really, really subtle on so many things to establish trust or friendliness or acceptance, in that we just can't throw them around, because they actually have a lot of meaning. So, sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tangent, but that's one of the things I'm writing. And also I'm also working on a book solely on guest experiences. So how can you work on guest experience, not necessarily on a budget, that it's kind of what you can do without spending tons of money to enhance a guest experience, giving ideas and everything. So, I have those types of things. We have newsletters every week, and in our community of property owners and managers, that we're asking a lot of questions and helping them solve their problems or look at things a little bit differently, so that they can work through and progress in increasing their bookings directly and expanding their authority and trust within their marketplace, so that they're not just, they're not just reliant on the OTAs for those
Is it?
reservations. And I think
Got it.
that's one of the biggest things that is a hurdle for a lot of properties these days.
Yeah, no, for sure. Why don't we talk a little bit about that one that you're writing also on improving guest experience without breaking the bank? I think that's something that a lot of people would love to hear more about. If you have any tips or any things that you found that are, worth doing but don't cost a lot of money.
Off the top of my head, because I didn't prepare a list, and I have a list of a bunch of them, but I don't have them off my memory. But I can say this is that it is the little things, and I'll give a great example, because because of my life in Mexico for so many years, is that the electricity would go out, right? So if I'm a local, we're like, oh damn, the electricity's out. But for a tourist, if you went in for a guest and you lit candles in their room and they came back and went, oh, the electricity is out, but you've already lit candles in their room and everything, then it becomes a positive experience as opposed to a negative experience. Lighting incense. I have one property that was always everyone's favorite, where every night, because the incense would keep the mosquitoes down, they would burn incense along the paths to all of their cabanas. And it was a very practical reason they did it, but it set off an ambiance, and it created an experience that people just absolutely love. So it's those little things that we might take for granted or find to be a major inconvenience that you can turn around and say, oh, the electricity is out. Or the typical bottle of wine. If you have a family who's arriving at 11 o'clock at night, wouldn't it be nice if you already have some refreshments in the refrigerator for them, some fruit, some snacks? So, and the big thing, coffee, is so that when they wake up in the morning, at least they can get that first pot of coffee down. Those little things, which really don't cost a whole lot of money, make a very big difference. And I will say this, and this is my rant on cleaning fees. And I was at a property that I booked through an OTA in New Hampshire, and two women in a 3-bedroom condo, and we paid full price on shoulder season, or it was even off season. And the night before, and I had told them that my background is in vacation rentals and marketing and in the hotel industry. I had told them that when I had booked the property. I get a message from them that says, you need to do these 12 things before you check out tomorrow. And I had just come back from going to like some local play and dinner. And the last thing I wanted to do on my last night is to go through this honey-do list before I left.
Nice.
And they were still charging me a $200 cleaning fee. I'm sorry, that's just bullshit. If I was a mom in that 3-bedroom condo with 3 kids, and this is my last night before I have to go home and get life back to normal for my family, I would be absolutely furious. And I wrote the property this. I wrote the owner this. And he refunded me $100. Even though I had already stripped the bed and done the laundry and taken the garbage out and the whole list, is that that simple act of charging a cleaning fee to people can totally leave a sour taste in a customer's mouth, a guest's mouth, where they're going to go back. I mean, I would never tell anybody to go to this property, and they never told me there was construction there. I would never go back to this place. Lovely unit, but the interactions in that too.
But do you think it's the fact that they charge a cleaning fee, or the fact that they charge a cleaning fee and on top of that they were asking you to do all of these things? Like if they were just charging the cleaning fee but didn't ask you to do anything when you checked out, would that be all right?
I have a little bit mixed feelings on that. Yeah, okay, great. But then I'm absolutely not doing anything. But to put the two together like that, do this honey-do list, and I'm charging you a cleaning fee, absolutely not. And trust me, I've had properties where the people have absolutely trashed the place, and it takes a whole team of maids or, caretakers to go in and clean it up. I get that. I get it. But you know what? Those are exceptions. They're not the rule. And if you're paying $200 for people to go and clean up, they can strip the beds. You don't ask your guests to do that. Is let them come back,
Let
because in the long run, you're going to make more money than that $200 cleaning fee. Are you really paying $200 for the maids? Sorry. But, there's also that intrinsic value. And I also think this is another thing that does not cost a lot of money, is don't nickel and dime guests on damages. You break a wine glass, you break a coffee mug, life happens. Don't charge them, $50 for a new set of 4 wine glasses when it was one glass that already was chipped. Is that
Left.
those little nickel and dime experiences, they leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And at the end of the day, to just suck it up and cover that cost, it's a cost of doing business, in my opinion. And I think in the long run, those little things, if you just drop some of those things and you're a good host, then you're going to have those repeat guests. And you're not going to have to go and, you don't have to go over the top with investment, sending in the masseuse and all these other things. Some of these basic things don't cost any money, really, in the grand scheme of things. So thank you for letting me rant.
No, no, no. Listen, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm actually trying to see. I've never done this, but I'm trying to see if I can share my screen and share some slides of a presentation that we actually put together on this topic of how to deliver exceptional hospitality. And I mean, a lot of it comes from the mindset of the book on reasonable hospitality, right? Which talks about the story of Will. I can't remember the last name right now, but the guy that took over this 3-star brasserie, that he was 26 years old when he took over, and 11 years later, it was basically named the best restaurant in the world, right? And so it just goes through the story of how do they go and become the best restaurant in the world? Was it the quality of the food? Well, it turns out that, when this process started, the quality of the food was already top notch. They already had all the Michelin stars that you can think of. They had the quality of the food right, but it was the mindset of the quality of the service that had to be
Yep.
changed. And a lot of those things, to your point, they don't cost a lot of money. Not only do they not cost a lot of money, but on top of that, it's, to your point, the guest will notice it if it's missing. Unfortunately, they just won't notice it if it's there. Like, a lot of times, it's like the type of thing that it will really damage your experience if it's not there. But if it's there, you kind of like take it for granted, or maybe
Yep.
you don't, and you're thankful. So I just wanted to, if you give me a second here, I just want to try adding this. I'm not gonna go through all of it, but I just want to go to, like, this example of the hot dog, right? That they talk about on the book. It's a great example of something that didn't cost a lot of
Yep.
money and impacted the guest experience. And basically, the example is, there's a group of Europeans that are at the restaurant, and they're talking about how they had these amazing culinary experiences in New York. They've tried all the best restaurants, but there's one thing they didn't try, and it was a street hot dog. So the guy runs outside and finds a street hot dog to bring to them. And of course the chef is like, "Are you crazy? We're like a luxury, high fine cuisine type of restaurant. Like, we're not gonna do this." But the guy's like, "No, believe me, we gotta do this." So they make this hot dog look all nice and special for the guests. They go and bring it to the guests. They said, "Hey, we overheard your conversation and we thought you would enjoy this," right? And it didn't cost them that much. It cost
Yep.
them $1, literally, to put this together, right? To go and buy this hot dog. So it just goes back to what you were saying. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. It's the
Yep.
thoughtfulness that you put into it, more so than how
Absolutely.
much it costs.
Absolutely. And I was there was a hotel down in the Siancam biosphere in Mexico. relatively new hotel, and I had been talking to the reservations manager. We were going to represent them. I had even walked through the hotel while it was being built, and I had just mentioned in passing conversation that I enjoyed yoga. That morning, there was a yoga mat and a note that said, just in case you'd like to do yoga this morning, here's a yoga mat for you. Really? And although the hotel, it was off season, there weren't a lot of guests, I had a handwritten menu that said, here are the things, what would you like for dinner this evening? Not just like, hey, we got these 6 things, what do you want? Here's a handwritten menu that said, these are the things we can prepare for you this evening. Made all the difference in the world. And what did it take? A few minutes to write it out on a piece of paper, or to go and get that yoga mat and drop it off at my door. Those are just like those little things that make an enormous difference. And I say this, and there'll be people who will just cringe, but you have to give a shit, right? If you are having a guest there, you are an ambassador for your town, your destination, your community. You're an ambassador, and you want to deliver that great experience to those guests, and you have to care. If you're just doing it because you want to make money, and there's nothing wrong with making money, but you will do better in the long run if you honestly care about your guests, the experience that they have, and your community, that your guests are experiencing the best of your community. And maybe not even some of them, but they're having an authentic experience. And I know that word authentic is overused and things, but it's the truth. Are you giving the best experience possible to that guest? And that is the reason we should all be in hospitality, is because we care about delivering a quality experience to the guests. And I will say this, and this is, and it's not, I don't know if it will land well for everybody who's listening to it, is that, when you're in a country such as Mexico and other countries that have domestic staff, maids, gardeners, and everything, is that the properties are missing a huge opportunity to take these people who are seeing these guests almost on a daily basis or a few times a week, right? They're your representatives, is to not just consider like, oh, they're the gardener, or oh, they're the maid. No, these people are an extension of you, your brand, your property, is to treat them with respect and to have them understand the value that they bring to their guest when they're going in to wash the dishes, make the bed, do these things, climb the tree and grab a coconut and cut it open for a kid who's staying there at the house. Those little things. And I think that sometimes owners and managers lose sight on the value to those key people that are there every day, whether you're running a 5-star all-inclusive resort or a small independently owned property, is that those people, yes, they're your staff or your employees if you want, but to look at them as an extension of your brand and your experience. And they will do a better job if they feel they are bringing value to that guest, and that it is appreciated not only by the guest, but also by the employer.
Now, how do we achieve that? Because it's easy to, let's say, for someone like you or like myself, or someone that's listening to this, they care, they give a fuck, like you said earlier, like we're starting from a place of caring, right? And probably that's why we're in this industry in the first place. How do you take that mindset and implant it in the brain of someone that is just there looking to do their job, especially, and not to say that it's just a Mexico thing, but like Latin America, I can speak about this because I'm from Latin America. Latin American countries in general have this challenge where, especially, let's say, the talent that's going to be available for this type of tasks, maintenance, cleaning, and whatnot, they're not always going to be the most passionate human beings that will have this sense of purpose in what they're doing. So how do you transmit that mindset to both your team members but also your homeowners, right?
I think it comes down to a level of respect, and it might sound that it may sound kind of a cliche, but really is that we have to respect that individual. They may have not had the same opportunities or something. I mean, I've had maids and gardeners who didn't know how to read, but they knew I appreciated the job that they did, that I appreciated that they came to work every day. And so it is that level of just saying thank you. Showing them, if you want things doing a certain way, is to explain it to them. Don't, in a way that they can understand. And if you make your maids and gardeners and their labor force, if you make them feel that they are part of a team and they're making a difference, they will try because they feel appreciated. And the wonderful thing I had in all my years in Mexico is that I never looked someone who worked at the property level, whether it was a property manager, a maid, a gardener, or anything, and said, "Oh, well, they're just the maid, or they're just whatever their position is." No, is that they're part of my team, because if I treat them with respect and I am there to support them, and it's almost like a regular management situation in any company. If you're showing respect and compassion for that person who's working for you, when the shit really hits the fan, you can call this person at 11 o'clock at night and say, you know what, this person can't get in the house. Can you go over there and let them in? Or we're having a problem in this hotel room and we really need so-and-so to come in. Is that if you have that team environment and you propagate that feeling of respect and appreciation, that it will come back with you. But if you just kind of brush them off and say, oh, well, that job is just, it's not that important, you're going to get back you're going to get that back. I really think you need to put that level of care in. And it really goes back. Are you in the hospitality industry just to make a buck? Or are you in the hospitality industry to make a difference? And I think we all have that opportunity to make a difference. And I might be very Pollyanna in saying that, but I honestly believe that, especially in this day and age, and I might have even mentioned to you in the call, is that hospitality and tourism in general, whether you're a tour operator or a property owner or a hotel manager, is that we have the great opportunity to expose people who are from not our area, or maybe they're just from across town and they've never been on our side of town, is to expose them to a culture or an experience or food or just the people that they might not be accustomed with. And so we have the great opportunity to bring people together and to bring an understanding to one another and go, oh, okay. And there's not a lot of industries out there that can do that has that much power and opportunity to forge understandings and everything. And that was one of the wonderful things when I had the company in Mexico, was that I wanted people to understand. And even if you go to an all-inclusive resort, right, you're eating off the buffet and everything, well, that guest would go to the all-inclusive resort their first trip, and maybe they go to the Tulum ruins, and then they're going to come back. Maybe they go to a smaller hotel, maybe they rent a condo, and they keep coming back. The next time they go, oh, we're going to rent a house because we know our way around, and they build that comfort level because now they've been exposed and they realize it's not the headlines or the misconceptions they may have. So we have a great opportunity in hospitality and tourism to break down some of the barriers and expose people to wonderful things, from culinary to culture. It's really, I mean, obviously I'm passionate about it. So please just, I'm sorry. I just think that there's so much that we can bring to the industry, that I'm just so passionate about it, which is what drives me to do these things, because honestly, it's the guest experience, and I understand the need to make money, and I understand the need to develop the local businesses and local communities and all that. And I think it's all possible through hospitality and tourism. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
That's great. That's exciting. No, I love how passionate you are about this, and you can tell that it's genuine. I have a question though. When it comes to right now, you're building this platform that incorporates AI, into many aspects of brand building and content creation, and very specific for the hospitality segment. I guess the first comment is, I was speaking with someone the other day, and they used to work for Google. Like, this guy has a tech background, has worked for Google, has worked for, I think, Expedia, like has worked for a lot of big tech companies. And he was looking to change industries. And he took an approach of saying, okay, what are the industries where AI is not going to completely, like where the industry is not at risk from AI taking over and basically like killing the industry, right? And he
Yep.
said, well, I came up with hospitality, and now he's in hospitality. Now he's a property manager, vacation rental property manager. But he comes from this big tech world and did this analysis of saying, well, I think I'm safe in this industry because yes, AI is gonna enhance it in some ways, but it's not gonna destroy the industry, right?
No, no.
What are your thoughts on why hospitality is quote unquote bulletproof to AI, disruption, but at the same time, what are the main areas that you anticipate will actually be, quite disrupted by AI in hospitality specifically?
So this I think goes back, and we look at hospitality is hospitality and humanity, right? Hospitality, if you're going somewhere, whether it's across town, across country, across the seas, is that the travel experience and the hospitality experience is a human experience, and you can only really have it when there's other humans and culture there. I mean, you go to a museum, you're still experiencing the culture and the humanity that was there. So there's always going to be a human factor, and in human engagement, I mean, we still, even after COVID-19, we as a people, as humanity, we still want that connection with people. Even if it's digital, we still want that connection with people. So I think hospitality will always have that human component, because that is what makes hospitality is that humanity, the human element. And the area that I believe, well, I will go back and say that the AI helps develop, whether it's content or guest services or data-driven insights, right? It gives us tools. It's a tool to do our jobs better. So if I use these content development tools, or I'm using data-driven to do better messaging in my branding and marketing, guess what? It leaves me more time to engage with my staff, engage with my guests, maybe even take a little bit more time for myself, because we all know hospitality is a really demanding industry, right? We all work holidays and weekends and all this. So AI is a tool that can help us do our jobs, or help some of these tedious jobs get done faster, more efficiently. And you still have to proofread. You need to put in that human factor. Does the message resonate? Does it have our tone? Does it have the brand? Are we expressing that message? And that can only be determined at this point by a human being. The downside that I worry about is that, will AI affect images, photography? We know we take pictures, we Photoshop them, maybe we get that palm tree out of there, or, the snow's all white instead of the snow plows looking through or something. Yeah, I mean, we can touch up images, and we all know when we've seen images that have been overtouched or the colors are overdriven and we go, oh God, they got a little crazy on Photoshop. The images are what probably is my personal biggest concern, is that will people be able to generate images that are misrepresentative of their property? I mean, yeah, we can all maybe do it a little bit to a degree with Photoshop and that, but at the end of the day, with AI, are they going to suddenly turn your cottage into a 5-bedroom mansion, on the beach in Malibu or something? We don't know. So there's where human integrity comes in, is to be able to use any of these tools responsibly, so that we're not misrepresenting our product and our services to our guests, that we are being honest with what we're delivering to them, because it will catch up with you. If you're using fake photos about your property, You get a few people in there and they're going to post on the, review sites. Oh my God, it was nothing like the pictures. It really sucked. Well, that will catch up with you. But there's where my biggest fear lies. Now, I do have a tool that will take an image and write a nice description about it. You say, oh, it has a comfy sofa and a fireplace and stuff. So you can use tools like AI to be able to help with property descriptions, which can help people who might not be the best writers in the world, or to be able to delegate some of those tasks. But what will happen if people use image generators to generate the images to their property? And to me, that's the biggest thing. And if they're, and it really goes, and even then the descriptions is, are they being honest and accurate? And you know what? Whether it was AI generating a description that made the property over the top, a human being could write the same thing, right? And say, oh, my places are fabulous, and it's and it's garbage, right? So
that's a very good point when it comes to the pictures. Yeah, because I think that will open the need for, that will bring the need for a third party that can authenticate the validity of pictures, which is where I think, we might be going. Even on social media nowadays, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's fake, right?
Yeah.
So what's the role? I think it's going to be interesting to see what's the role that, an OTA like Airbnb is going to have to start playing on validating, the accuracy of the information that is presented on the platform. And when it comes to the pictures, will we see some sort of verified check mark, when it comes to this, and it has to be a process where Airbnb goes and checks your properties. Like we've seen this on Airbnb, on how before it used to be a thing of like, there were certain things that they were rewarding. Like they were rewarding, certain behavior with a superhost status or different things. Now it's interesting that they're not just rewarding good behavior, but they're punishing bad behavior as well. Like all of a sudden, if you are no longer, with a certain average review score, you're getting this cancellation, suspension messages from the platform. If you have a lot of host initiated cancellations, like all of a sudden that's behavior that's being punished. So it's going to be interesting to see what role this OTAs, this middle platforms start to play as accuracy starts to become more of an issue. I hadn't thought about that way. It's interesting.
But it's also, if you look at an Airbnb situations, is that people who are taking images from another website, posting up the places their own, and scamming people, saying, "Oh yeah, you can rent my house in, Puerto Vallarta for $20,000 at Christmas," and it was a whole scam. They stole the photos, the description, and everything, marketed its own, and ripped off the owner, or ripped off the client. And I wish I didn't have so many stories that I've heard over the years where people were like, we booked this place, and then we find out we didn't because it was a scam. And that's it's a very sad thing that happens, to see any guests get, their trip of a lifetime be ruined by being ripped off. But that, that verification, and that was one thing, when we did reservations for Mexico, did we have 5,000 properties? No. But you know what? Of all the properties we had, I had physically been to all of them. And I wrote the descriptions, and I did, we did the work, because then we knew, and it was our own verification, if you will. It wasn't a blue check, but I certainly went there, and I would also stay because I wanted to experience it, because we're selling the experience.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what question though? Because I know you're a professor, right, at the university, and you teach, basically, is it travel and tourism?
So no, I have been doing some guest lectures at Temple on AI and marketing for their business school, but for the travel and tourism school, I teach disaster risk and crisis management.
Okay, crisis management. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about, and I'm just asking because I got into hospitality in a in a way that is not like, I didn't know this was the industry I wanted to end up in, type of thing. It's funny because when I was in college, there was actually there was the business and administration and entrepreneurship program that I went through, and there was a very similar program, but it was tourism and hospitality. And I remember thinking, what do you need to study, hospitality for? Like, this is literally me thinking, like, what is there to learn? And of course, life ended up putting me in this industry 5 years ago, and not originally with the mindset of like, oh, I'm passionate about hospitality or anything like that, but it sort of became something that with time I started to become more and more, passionate about. But I learned everything I know about this industry through doing the work rather than through an academic approach. But then everyone we hire on the Angel Host side of things, like every person that joins us on our guest services team, like any department really, they have a hospitality background, right? They have that official, education and whatnot. So I'm curious to know, from your point of view as a professor, like, what would you say are the core fundamentals of learning about hospitality or about travel and tourism that you make sure you pass along to students that are taking your classes?
Well, I went on to further my education only to, I've had all these boots on the ground experiences, right? And I wanted to go and see, well, what will that advanced education bring to the party? And that's why, now when I go in and I speak to these groups, is because I have more business experience than the academic, than I'm not a career academic. And it gives me what having the education does is it gives me an insight into some of the historical value of things. Native Americans, we all have heard about casinos on reservations, right? Okay. Well, way back, and if you go back into the history of hospitality, tourism, travel, Native Americans have a history for games and gaming, that it goes way back. Or, oh, you will appreciate this. Latinos, right? Latinos, they have the big family reunions. We go to a park, right? And everybody brings food and that, because that was back years and years ago. That was what they did. They didn't necessarily all go, to some resort or something, but they went to a park and had a family gathering because the value was on family and it was something they could afford to do. Or, going where they don't know how to swim, but they're all by water and they're on the rope hanging on and everything, and they're enjoying that whole experience. So the history of travel and tourism, I think, was very insightful to learn. Also on the analytics. And, I came from the school of hard knocks in a lot of my experiences, but to be able to look at the analytics, whether it's the daily rate, the occupancy rate, some of those numbers, to understand that, even though I don't use them every day, is to be able to understand them, to be able to ask intelligent questions. So those education factors help me look at stuff. And now we live in a data-driven world because data is everywhere. So for people coming into the industry with the education level about the industry, they're bringing in insights on what the power of data can and how you can make decisions based on the data, as opposed to a gut feeling or saying, oh yeah, everybody's our guest, when really not. If you look at the data and there's just a small target segment that's really their ideal guest. So, I kind of, when I talk to students, it's really to be able to bring, they're developing, they have a lens which is multifaceted. So if you have, they can see things, they can get a better, a more overall picture, because they can see hospitality and tourism through different lenses, whether it's analytics or the history of culturally and that. So that, I think, is one of the strengths in the education of hospitality and tourism. And then I will touch on this, is in disaster risk and crisis management, it's a really hard topic for anybody to talk about. Why? Because we sell fun, we sell memories, we sell experiences. It's all very
Mhm.
positive stuff. And we don't want to look at things when it goes wrong,
Mhm.
but it can go wrong. Whether it's a hurricane, whether it is, you know, a war, all of these, or an environmental issue and things. There are all sorts of disasters and crises that can affect that tourist experience or that
Yeah.
guest experience. And we don't like to think about them, but I have seen too many new property owners who don't know what to do when there is a problem, when a disaster or crisis hit, and what to do about it, what to do with the guests, but how to protect their own business. Is their data backed up? Caring about their employees. What are they going to do with the guests? How are they communicate with the existing guests? How do they communicate with the guests coming in? And how do they communicate with the guests that are coming in 6 months that want to know how their vacation is affected? And so that crisis communication, especially in this world where messaging is everywhere, you can't just sugarcoat it and say, oh, yeah, we got hit with a Cat 5 hurricane. It's fine. You can't say that because they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to hear it's not fine. So it's how do you write that message, or how do you prepare to deliver these messages so that you are handling your most immediate needs with your customers, your staff, your property and business, but
Mhm.
then looking at how to communicate those messages down the road, and also look at things within municipality or city or anything. What are the procedures? What are the protocols so that you're a better prepared business owner to be able to handle a bad situation? So that, and if you're honest with guests and really try to help them through that, you're better off in the long run. I mean, I had customers, and I'm still friends with these people, where I had to drive them to Belize City to get them on a plane after we got hit. Was it Hurricane Wilma maybe? And we drove people to Belize City from the Riviera Maya to get them out. But to have that type of responsibility and selflessness to be able to help people who really, especially if you're in a foreign country, don't know what to do. So I think that, and really, and I will say this is that you don't need to have these big elaborate plans, but you can really, there's a simple grid you can do. What are the most likely things? Is it flooding? Is it earthquakes? Is it natural disasters or environmental conditions and things? And to be able to eliminate out the things that are least likely to happen and the things that are most likely to happen, and how to prepare for them. And when they say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, some antiquated phrase like that. So, and that's a big thing because it's really easy because we're so used to selling fun and enjoyment and experience that we forget that sometimes things really the shit hits the fan, and you can handle it and not, and be able to keep your reputation and build it and not, really damage the business, and to protect your own assets, whether it's data or your property. You can do all of it with just a little bit of planning.
That makes a lot of sense. And I keep I'm very interested because of that mix of sort of life experience as well as academic background of yours. You just said, okay, that one of the elements of that traditional education in hospitality is learning the language. What's an ADR? What's an occupancy rate? What's a RevPAR? Like all of those things. That's the language side. Then there's the context of historically, where does this industry come from and what are the ups and downs that it has gone through. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, because then you talked about crises and risk management and whatnot. Just if you know, like if anything comes to mind, I'm curious to know from that historical point of view, how has hospitality dealt with crises such as pandemics and wars and those types of things, like historically, because we're so centered in like our lifespans that we don't think, oh, these things have happened already. Like there's already been a war where hospitality got affected. And so, like, what could you tell us about anything you might know on how the history of this industry has bounce back from different crises throughout time?
This will be a modern day example. I forget how many years ago it was, within the last 10, I believe, is the shooting the shooting in Las Vegas from the shooter that was in the MGM hotel. Do you remember
Okay.
that one? Festival outside, and they had a shooter in the hotel who was, shooting at concert goers and everything. And what that allows us to do now, the MGM brand has gone on, and the thing with any of these crises is to be able to step back and say, could it be prevented? What were warning signs? What are these things? And that would go the same with, natural disasters, earthquakes, fires, and all that. How can we minimize the effect? We might not be able to stop it entirely. Now, in the case of MGM, there could have been some warning signs that could have been addressed to be able to have prevented that shooting. But in natural disasters and all, whether it's fires or blizzards and things, is to have those, to know where the weak spots are, to be able to prepare for those and address them accordingly. And the fires in California, which are going on right now, it's not only does it upset the hospitality industry, but like the wine industry and talking about, that the whole sector that affects tourism. If the wine industry goes down in Napa because of fires or Sonoma, then that affects a lot of other things. And so how it gives a great opportunity in looking at some of these things and how can we be resilient. I will also, and I was there today, I was in Freeport, Maine, home of LL Bean. Freeport, Maine is known for its shopping. That's it. Well, since COVID, shopping diminished, some stores closed up and left, and the properties there now, the bed and breakfasts and private properties and all, struggle because they're trying to find ways to be resilient, because shopping might not be the way it was or what they got accustomed to it being. So I think it also, in looking at some of these educational factors, is that we can build resiliency, not just in the types of disaster and crises, but how do we become resilient as a business? How do you move forward, whether it's with competitors or a new destination or trends or airlines? I mean, there's a lot of things. So looking at all of these factors, looking at the data, looking at historical trends, we can help build resilient businesses and resilient communities. And, especially in looking at sustainable tourism, if we can take the lessons that we've learned and look at resilience, is maybe we will avoid some of the over tourism situations like they're having in Venice or Barcelona. So people with the education that will come with maybe a broader perspective than some, to be able to look at a long-term picture of resiliency and growth for a business, as opposed to being reactionary and trying to just, minimize damage. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Prevention rather than reaction. I think that makes a lot of sense, and it gives you a holistic perspective of the industry as a whole. Listen, Kay, this has been amazing. I can keep you here for hours, but I wanna thank you for your time. And yeah, it was really fun. Where can people connect and learn more about Smart Pineapple and about you?
Oh, great. Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, just putting Kay Walten, and it's Ian, not O-N. And also Smart Pineapple is smartpineapple.ai. And we also have started an education community, which will be subscription. You don't have to be an app user, but we're working with property owners and managers and, smaller hoteliers, to help educate them and bring some of the things that we touched upon here. We're building out courses and engaging to see what are the problems that you're having. And it's almost like a group consulting, right? Everybody together and we can sit in the hot seat, because I really want to help people be successful in what they're doing and bring the knowledge, and for all of us to share information, because some of the things that we experience in one location are also the same problems they're having with another. Everybody's paying big commissions to OTAs, or they have crises to deal with, or customers that are irritable. We all know them, and we can learn from one another and their experiences.
Love it.
So
thank you so much for your time, Kay.
Hey, thanks, Sebastian. Thank you.
I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye.